Do you think that the summer heat is shutting down your inshore fishing? Think again. If you use the right lures and the right strategies, I can keep those lines tight for you all summer long. Now we're going to talk specifically today about redfish, flounder, speckled trout, and snook. But this can apply to a lot of different species in all geographic areas. I'm your host, Captain C.A. Richardson, and welcome back to FlatsClass University. Let's get started. Now, these are some of my best beat the heat strategies other than fishing like a vampire all night long. Many of us don't have that ability to fish at night. So how do you catch them during the day? Let's talk about that a little bit with a couple of these scenarios. Naturally, early and late are going to be your friends, for sure. Also, fishing deeper. Fishing in troughs and channels and big basin bowls. These holes near springs, these are your opportunities in the summer where these fish will migrate to that deeper moving water. So I'm looking for current. I'm looking for these deeper zones. I'm also looking for a little bit of breeze. I'm going to say when we get into late fall, winter time, and most of the spring, many of us focus because of front and big winds. We focus on areas that are on lee shorelines. This time of year, you want to fish the breezy shorelines. You want to fish where there's a little bit of choppy wave action. And that's because it oxygenizes the water, cools it off. It's going to be a better zone. It's going to stack bait up and it's going to stack game fish up. And then lastly, shady cover. And I don't mean fishing in bad neighborhoods. Dad joke there. And possibly even a bad joke there. But shady cover, I'm talking fishing bigger docks. I'm talking fishing mangrove overhangs or maybe trees in a river scenario. Anywhere you see that hard line of shade on the brightest part of the day, that midday sun. Because that's the part of the day that really hamstrings all of us this time of year. And that's fishing during those high temperatures when the water's the warmest and there's tons of fishing pressure from other anglers because everyone is on vacation in the summertime. So for me, I try to target that pre-dawn area, that time of the day. I'm looking at fishing 5:30 in the morning up till about 8 or 9. Then it starts getting busy and then I start adjusting my strategy. The other part of that early-late pattern would be to fish after the afternoon sea breeze thunderstorms if you have those in your region. I like to fish, that time of day that is like 5 o'clock when everyone's headed back to the ramp. Fish from 5 o'clock to maybe 9 o'clock at night, just after dark in the summer on these longer days. It's an excellent opportunity. And then cover what I just spoke about. Now, let's talk or dive down a little bit deeper into what you might want to use for these zones in these times of day. Number one would be topwater. Topwater would be my number one choice for early and late. And that's because these walking baits can cover so much water and they're fish callers. When you have diminished light and you've had the radiation of the sun out of the water and the fish know that this is their opportunity when the O2 levels are up, so their energy levels are pumped up. They're looking for larger prey because they want to eat now. They don't want to try to look for food all day long. And you're really wanting to expand the zone that you can bring them to it. Draw them into this bait. Well, walking baits are tough to beat. This happens to be a Top Dog Junior and more of a custom color. But whether you're using whatever brand of topwater, all of these topwaters work extremely well. And for me, it's probably the first one I choose every time once we're into July and August and early September. When I'm trying to beat the heat, I'm usually walking my dog. Next out of the BUZBE box would have to be larger paddle tail presentations. I don't use small paddle tails this time of year. I'm trying to use everything in that 5 to 6 inch size. And I'm using them on heavier heads, typically 3/8 to 1/2 ounce heads. And you're like, whoa, slow down, that's pretty heavy. Well, remember, we're not just targeting early and late. Lots of times I'm targeting that little bit deeper water. I'm wanting to fish that water that is 4, 8, maybe even 10 feet deep along edges that come up to, like, you know, causeway bridges where you got a nice long straight bank and then you've got that corner that goes into the first couple of pylons, and that edge in there holds snook and holds flounder and often holds larger redfish as well. And they're looking for a bigger bait. I want a bait that's got some thump. And I want a bait that I got enough surface on the jig head to be able to feel that bottom when I'm throwing braid. So I want to roll. Lots of times I'll roll it and let it hit that bottom, hit that bottom, hit that bottom. I'm not really jigging it per se, kind of rolling it and let it pop, rolling it and let it hop. You know, pop and hop all the way along that bottom, trying to stay in contact. Want to be right there where I can feel it. So I'll tie a direct connect knot. I'm going to use as light a braid as I feel like I can get away with because it transfers the feel further. And use fluorocarbon leaders so that you have more feel as well. Sharp hooks, super necessary. But these bigger paddle tails, open jig head form, really tough to beat in the summertime, early and late. That's where I like to fish them. Deep and early and late is a really strong tactic. I'm not saying I don't fish the flats this time of year. Oftentimes I will do it for a little bit. But when you're in the dog days of summer, I mean, when it's like whew, really hot, you're going to want to fish deeper, faster moving water. Try it. You're going to see some reaction. Let's dig in here and show you another one of my favorites. And that would be bucktail jigs. Love bucktail jigs this time of year. Especially when I'm fishing like sandy beach troughs, or I'm fishing cuts and passes where I'm fishing up tight to the beach in those swash channels that kind of come around those edges. There's everything in there. There's snook in there, there's flounder in there, there's whiting in there at times. You just don't know what you'll catch pompano. But bucktail jigs in that 1/4 and 3/8 ounce size really can save a day of fishing. That white bottom works really good when you're throwing bucktail jigs. Let me pull out another one here. Another one I really like a lot is the 28 MR. This is the heavy Miridine XL. And it's just one of those baits that come in really handy when you got to fish in a little bit of tide and a little bit of current, because you need to be targeting those periods of the day where the current is moving. Those slack tides, you just need to head to the local beach bar and get a cold beer and a cheeseburger. But if that water's moving either in or out and you've got moving water, this is one of those twitch baits that can really save the day. Most of the time I'm telling you guys to throw double Ds or just the standard 27 MR, but when we get to summertime and we've got more tide flowing, these 28 MRs, not only do they cast a hell of a lot farther, but they sink a little bit faster. And having that faster sink rate allows you to work them in tide a lot. So I can work them out near the beaches. I can work them in the intercoastal channels where you've got some tide around some docks. Some of the roll-offs that come off the flat, these are all excellent. And speckled trout, well, they can't leave them alone. All right, let's see what else I've got for you. All right, for you heavy metal fans, that's right, I'm talking to you guys that love to crank up the Metallica. Spinnerbaits. I'm really talking about you marsh guys. If you love fishing the marsh, it's hard not to know that these big spinnerbaits, HD size spinnerbaits, slow rolled in the bayous, and all the little trenasses that run out of the hard marsh, these things just absolutely wreck the redfish. The redfish and, of course, the big black drum. But they find them with this bait. This is one of my best all-time search baits in the summer. Does a fantastic job sending out that message, thump, 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 thump. If you live in a clear water fishery that doesn't have that stained water, doesn't have that heavier grass that's kind of mixed in with some brackish water, throw a 1/2 ounce gold spoon. Aqua Dream brought these back, these simple gold spoons in this larger size. And in many cases for me, if I'm fishing in some mangrove backcountry where I've got some cuts that run through between islands, I'll throw that spoon as far up in there as possible, because a lot of that water's tannin with all the rains that we have now. So that, what I mean by tannin, the water looks like tea, it has that little reddish brown color to it. So all the fish that are in there have that goldy look to them. So throwing a big 1/2 ounce spoon in there is perfect. But I don't want you just to reel it, okay? I want you to cast it up onto the flat in the back, and then when you're rolling it through that cut, once you get to the cut, start just like lifting it and letting it flutter down. Lifting it and start letting it flutter down. You've got lots of snook and redfish that hang on the sides of those cuts, and they see that thing fluttering in the water just like that. They'll race out there and just hit it. There's a lot of competition in those neck downs. Don't think there isn't. And if you're throwing a 1/2 ounce spoon and doing that little flutter action, and be patient with it, let it get down, because sometimes those cuts are 4, 5, 6 feet deep. So if you're rolling it in the back at 2, 2.5 foot of water, and the tide's coming out, and you're getting to that neck down, let it fall down to the bottom. Then lift, 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 and let it flutter up, and then let it come back down, and it'll just waffle back down. You'll be surprised what you catch. Promise you. You might even catch a baby Goliath or a little small, gag, a little football. We call them footballs. And they'll just smash this thing and start running back in the mangroves. And you might want to bring 2 or 3 of these, because you're going to lose them. But if you're a heavy metal fan, I got you right here. All right, one more, and then we're going to wrap it up. All right, we're going to hit this last one here. That shady cover I was talking about, that is docks. Overhangs like mangrove shorelines, or just trees in the back of rivers and things like that. Places where you're going to encounter redfish. You're going to encounter snook for sure if you're in warmer waters. There are so many quality fish that live up underneath those trees. Some bigger mangrove snapper. You'll again run into those Goliath grouper. And it's one of my favorite ways to go about it. Those that really know me, when the summer comes, they know I'll be skipping baits. I love skipping docks, and I really love skipping mangrove shorelines. And there's not a bait that's any better than a 5 or 6 inch jerk shad rigged like this, completely weedless on a Pro Bullets head. Lots of times I'll use 1/8 or 3/16 heads. The whole rig itself weighs close to a 1/2 ounce, so I can skip it on casting gear, or I can skip it easily on spinning gear, and put it in those little mouse holes where it has to slide back in there. And you can pull snook out one after another if you hit the right shoreline. Or if you see that zone where you see the redfish maybe come out with the mullet and then they go back up underneath that mangrove shoreline, you're like, ooh, I need to skip that one. These jerk shads, they will absolutely produce in the summer months. So if you're looking for a bait in the middle of the day that you really got to use, and you're not fishing deep, and you're not fishing earlier or later at night, if you got to fish the middle of the day, skipping docks or skipping trees definitely is the way to go. All right, prioritize the deeper water. Key. I'm telling you, it's very much a key this time of year. Prioritize also the moving part of the tide. And here's another one that you really need to put some emphasis behind, and that would be fishing those major and minor solunar periods in the tide table. I'm telling you right now, you might not think they're as important in the spring and the fall, but when it's wintertime and when it's summertime, just because those are your extreme windows in your fishing year, it's important. Utilize them. Also remember, if you are fishing the heat of the day, even if you're skipping those baits back in the shade, take your time working them out. Work the baits more methodically. Remember what I told you about the heavy metal stuff where you throw it up there and you reel it, but you're taking your time, jigging and letting it kind of flutter through those zones. You're doing the same thing when you're skipping these baits. You're also doing the same thing when you're walking that dog early and late. Make sure you give them the opportunity. They don't have to expend as much energy to capture your lure. That's really, really important. I really would like to know, what are your favorite inshore fishing lures this time of year that beat the heat? What do you have in your tackle box that really gets the job done for you and you absolutely can tell me with confidence that I should be using it? I want to see those down in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please, hopefully we're earning the respect from you guys, teaching you some valuable tips here where you'll like us and subscribe to us, because I'm going to have more info and more intel here tomorrow for you. See you then.